We were working on the Excalidraw live sync thing, and we had our first green test after going through the changes of reactstates 4.0 and talking about how it should actually work conceptually. I noticed that I actually had to tick off a preference here because I'm not reacting to any comments, and it's because I don't know that they're there. But now I should get like a beep sound whenever there's a comment, so hopefully I'll be better at dealing with that. There's also, I can do something else. If the beeping doesn't work, I can try something else. Because it's nice that we can interact. Anyways, so we have our running test where we say that, okay, I'm mounting the Excalidraw with a mocked environment of storage. We need to create Excalidraw image, and we also need on visibility change because it registers a listener to it. And then we have the feature where we start in the edit state, and then we trigger a subscription change. And initially we had version 0, which is also where we are at here, and then it didn't work, which is exactly what we want. We only want to move to updating from pair if we change the version. So one thing we're going to do now is that we're actually going to give it some elements here. But these elements, we don't have to populate all of them. The only thing we care about is the version of the element. So if I do this and I say version, well, I can say version 0. And then this is the thing that moves it to version 1. I should get an error again, or not. Oh, sorry, no, I should not get an error. How should we do this? Yes, so let's introduce an error. So we're going to actually merge the elements array here with the new elements array coming in from the subscription. So let's imagine I'm working here. I have an element which is, well, maybe we should just introduce one element and the version is different. So I am on version 0. This, well, we need actually 2 elements, of course. So we're going to keep one of them and sync one of them. So this one is on version 2. And yeah, actually, I think we need a nonce as well here. Because like there has to be an ID of the element so that like we can't depend on, we can't assume the order is correct. We have to assume something else is correct so that we can actually compare the correct elements. And there's this nonce thing in these elements. Let's just fire it up so we can find that. Oh, wait, we can just look into the database. Firebase. I'm a little bit tired today, but hopefully it won't affect the stream too much. Let's see, where are we at? Excalidraw date. Let's just grab something here, and we should be able to see, yeah, version, no, that's, oh, version nonce. Let's just copy this thing. And JSON validator. There we go. We have something called version nonce. Oh, it actually has an ID. Okay, cool. Okay, then we'll just use a version nonce. I'm not sure what the difference is here. We'll try comparing the version, and we assume that the version will always increase. And then we add the ID so that we can actually compare the correct elements. So let's add that to the typing first. Didn't we add element here? Excalidraw data. Oh yeah, it's coming from the storage. Excalidraw element. There we go. ID string. Okay, so let's add the ID. So let's say this is ID 0, this is ID 1. So this is the thing, like this, I'm not sure how we're going to test this, because now we're only checking if it actually, like we start in the edit state, but we really want to know if this works in all the states where we actually have the subscription running. I guess we could just do a for each around it for all the states. Yeah, maybe we could do that. Maybe we could do that. Yeah, let's try that. Okay, so we have, where did we have the, let's just copy this for reference. We're going to try something here. Okay, so we need to create the mocks for every run. So let's create the states, subscription states, and we say this is an array of Excalidraw context state, where we're going to say, oops, 30 edit, updating from pair, syncing 30, and updating. Those are the states where we have an active, want to have an active subscription. And then we can say subscription states for each. We actually run the test. And boop. Let's see. And then instead of doing this, we'll say state. Oh, we just did this. Oh, yeah, we have to be, how should we do this? Like the thing is, now we're saying that this is an array of any state, but it's actually the specific states. How do we ensure, God damn it, how do we ensure that these are actual states? Do we have to create? Oh my god, that's the thing. Like you have to have such deep knowledge of TypeScript to like make this stuff predictable, and I don't like that. I don't like TypeScript. Like you shouldn't be an expert at TypeScript to use TypeScript. It should just kind of be under the hood for you, which is what I like about reactstates. The only place you actually do create typing is when you type the context and the actions, and that's super straightforward. And then you just add them to the transitions, and after that, everything is inferred. But so like if I remove this now, oh, that doesn't, yeah. Do I actually have to create a function for this? Get states. This is so silly. I'm not going to do this. I just want to test it. There you see, now it's working. Because now I'm saying that, okay, T has to be one of these states. So I do get like the autocomplete, I get completion. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. And this is the kind of stuff I hate about TypeScript. that you have these functions that doesn't do anything. It's just for typing. I wish there was a different way of, but I think I can do this. Let's see. Yeah, wait, I can do this as const. Yes, I can do that. So the thing when you have an array of strings, it's just an array of strings. Like it's the type. The type is string array, right? But when you say as const, suddenly it becomes an array of these specific values. And that's really what we want. And we still have the safety, because if I were to change one of these, now it starts yelling here, right? It doesn't yell at you here. You can put whatever you want here. But when you actually consume it, it yells at you. So we have the safety we need, actually. Okay, that was good. That was good. Okay, so we have the state. Yeah, and so now we're kind of testing the states in all subscription states. Okay, so I think we should drop this and we'll create a separate test for that. So let's see what happens. Yeah, and now it starts failing, right? Which is good. I guess we don't really see which of the states that fails, but one of these fails. Isn't there like some way I can say, I can give a custom error? Expected. I want to check that. Just custom error unexpected. I don't think it's possible like that, but you could define your own matcher. You try dislib. You can use try catch. Yeah, that's kind of annoying. Anyways, I think we'll yeah, that's kind of annoying. I did kind of like the try catch though. Kinda. No, I didn't. That's so annoying that they don't have custom. Or do they? Like, does expect have actual? Yeah. That sucks. Okay, I think we're going to ignore that for now. So let's just make it work. So in this reducer, we have when we are in edit, we have this subscription update, and we have to introduce that in all the states where we actually want this to work. So if we copy this now down to dirty, and we have the same change data, updating from pair. Yeah, it's kind of annoying that this is like the same. The problem is that if we were to move this whole thing, we explored that in the last stream, if we were to move this whole handler into a separate function, we wouldn't really have a good way to like type this current context. Would we? could say that it has data, and then we return. Yeah, that's the thing. Like we have to return, like to get type safety on. Well, if we do, yeah, it would yell. Maybe. Okay, let's try this again. Let's try it again. Maybe I want to create like best practice on this. So this is so interesting. Like I keep iterating on this, but like React States is going to become an application architecture for React. And there's going to be like a Git book on this, and also I plan to write a book on it. But when it's an application architecture for React, it doesn't really have an API surface. It has these helpers, right? Like the transitions helper that creates a reducer for you. It has the match and so on. But you use the React primitives all over. Like you use reducer and everything. So what the application architecture becomes is not like a library API. It becomes patterns and best practices. And I think that's something I've discovered. I've built a few libraries which have pretty huge API surfaces, and they don't help you to think. They actually do the opposite. They make you not really think, which is more comfortable, of course, and can in many ways make you more productive. But if you rather expose more low-level primitives and you rather put patterns and best practices on top, you have to think more. And it just gives you more flexibility. And I just think if the goal is to help you like become a better programmer, I think patterns and best practices does that way better than creating abstract everything to an API surface where you don't have to think about it. Maybe you can't really compare that, but yeah, maybe I should think about that. Let's see. Let's try to create this handler again, and let's type it. So we can still have this get change data on subscription update, and this is the thing, and we want this data to be Excalidraw data, and the current context, all we want on that current context is data again, Excalidraw data. And then yeah, this is basically what we want. We don't actually type the return thing, and that's also the tricky thing about TypeScript. Like, should I type this, or should I infer it to the consumer of this function to make sure that this return type is correct? And that's the thing I learned about TypeScript, is that you actually want to do as little explicit typing as possible. Or maybe to be more precise, you do want to do explicit typing on the arguments, but you don't want to do explicit typing on the return types and what the variables are. You want that to be inferred as much as possible. And the thing is that if I were to type it here, I would get help right here when I return this. But by not typing it, the error happens at the consumer. And this is the same with React components. Like, you can do left side typing where you say that this is going to be a React component. And then you kind of get help defining that component. But if you don't do that, you just create a function. It's inferred when you consume it, that this is a function and that's a valid component, and then it looks at the return type, and that might be wrong. So if you were to return something invalid from that component with left side typing, you would instantly get an error about it. But if you don't have left side typing, it's inferred when you consume it. You would rather get that error in some other file where you actually consume that component. But that is, yeah, and this is like what I mean. This is patterns and best practices. And that's what I want to kind of find here. What are the best practices for working with this kind of stuff? And I would state that looking at this now, when you move your action handlers up like this, you don't want to pick the action or pick the context. I'm going to change that in documentation. You rather say, what does this subscription handler, this action handler actually need? And then you return whatever you want. And then any errors related to the action that is actually passed in here or the current context that you're actually in, the error happens here. That's what I mean to say. When you consume it. That's like the practice, the best practice. So if I do this, this should still work. But it does. Oh, it's oh, that was the problem. It's because we're spreading current context. That doesn't work. But I can say, I can do this, I think. That doesn't work either. Oh, because state is, what? Yeah, no, this doesn't work. This context is really like the return. Okay, let's spend some time on this. What should be the best practice here? Because we don't really care about, in this handler, we don't really care about the current state. We care about the values. Given that we're actually using the current context, we typically don't care, we shouldn't care about what state it's in. We care about what values are available on that state, because that's what we're accessing. Well, of course, you might check the actual current state, and in that case, yeah, you want to, god damn it. This is so annoying. This is really annoying. Okay, so the question to ask here is, what am I consuming from this current context? And it's data. But I'm also spreading it here. And I'm returning it here. So the problem, the error I'm getting is not relating to the spreading, because here I'm actually creating a valid context. It has the base context, I add the state, and then I like double add the data. But here I'm returning just the current context, and now I'm typing this as just this data. It doesn't have a state. And if I were to type this as Excalidraw context, I still have a problem, because not all of the contexts or all the states has a data property. So I would have to like explicitly say, I want this. That's the type I'm actually looking for. I don't care which of these states it is. I just care about that it has a state and this base context. So I could also say it has a base context, it has a state, and it has a base context. But that doesn't work either. Oh. Yeah. Oh, I think as no. Okay, this is really confusing. Because it's yelling about it's not assignable to type, updating from pair. Yeah. This isn't working out. Okay, anyways, like the thing is, if I spend so much time figuring out how to type this, it's I'm not saying I'm the smartest person in the world, but it gives a hint to how difficult it is to think about this. I wish there was some other way we could have this and still not make it so freaking difficult to reason about. because it's kind of silly if I go here and I say pick state, Excalidraw context, and then I start listing all the states, right? Then it's like it's silly. The point is that the consumer should decide if this handler fits or not. I shouldn't, like, yeah, it's silly. But if I were to like create a type out of this, like one single type, that would be exactly the same as picking this. So what I really want to say is that, okay, I wanted to have a base context, and I don't care about the state that's coming in here. Like, yes, I could do that. Like, I really don't care about the state coming in here. Maybe this is maybe the first time I'm using any for its actual purpose, because I really don't care. Like, I could say that I care about it being a string, but then there's this constant issue. Because I'm saying it's a string, but it shouldn't be a string. It should like be like a constant of string. It should be like it shouldn't be any string. I'm not sure how TypeScript actually deals with this. Like, how does it? Because this, do I have to do both? No, because this isn't. Yeah, I'm not sure what this actually means. The type of property state are incompatible. Type string is not assignable to type updating from pair. Oh yeah. No. Yeah. I'm actually not sure. Why is it? Oh yeah, so I guess this is the one it's yelling at. Or is it this one? Oh, now I see. So this current context, so if I were to like say, I would pick like each piece without the state, then I think it would work. The thing is that here it's a string, and here I'm like explicitly saying, so if I were to remove this, no. What the fuck? Huh? What the hell does this mean? Type string is not assignable to type updating from pair? Oh. It's because, yeah, of course, TypeScript looks at both of these return types. So this one here, the return type is a string, but here it is an explicit state, right? Yeah, so that's what's happening. So if I were to like remove this one, then it should work. What the fuck? But now it's not assignable to type updating from pair. But I'm not. Where the hell does it get updating from pair from? Huh? But who? I don't have anything. I'm not referencing updating from pair anywhere. Is it just generally looking at? So if I change the order, or if I just remove this, does it give an error on a different one? Yeah, exactly. You know, TypeScript errors are insanely confusing. So it's not specifically this one, it's basically any of these states it's complaining about. God damn it. Why do you make it so difficult, TypeScript? I wish there was a way to... Yeah, I did reason about, like, you could make these states enums, But I don't like the experience of that, because then you have to import that enum everywhere. Every time you want to look at the state, you have to look at the enum. But what they would allow us to do, we could say that the state needs to be, no, that wouldn't work either. No, I think I want to say any here. It's kind of weird that I can't write string. It should be a string, but this isn't like a string. It acts as like a constant or something. Literal types. Yeah, but I'm trying to defend using any here. Like, it's perfectly fine to use any here. But what is the practice around this? Is it when you lift your actions, type them based on what they consume? What would happen if I did this? Yeah, exactly. So this is the problem. Now I have an invalid return state, and there's no yelling. That's the problem. That is the problem. So we can't use any there. Yeah. Oh, wait, maybe I could do Excalidraw context and base context. Would that work? What are you complaining about now? Type string is not this. Ah, I'm still getting that? Oh, oh, pair. Okay, this is okay. Okay, I guess I added a complexity here, because we do have this base context, like certain, like how would you express these states? You can express it by creating a specific type. You can use pick state on the Excalidraw context to choose them specifically, or you can say, okay, I don't care about the which state we're in. Like, I point to Excalidraw context, but it also needs to support this, right? So you're starting at, oh, this is interesting. Maybe this is the best practice. So when you lift your action and you type the current context, if you're consuming it, well, I guess you're always, if you're consuming it, you should always start with the state and then restrict it. So it can be any of the states, but you have certain requirements for this context. In this case, the only requirement is that it has a base context. Yeah, I like that. That's a practice I like. The only thing now is that I wonder if I can do this and drop the const. Yes. Okay, this is interesting. So yeah, wait, even more interesting. So T extends, well, let's say current context. Yeah, maybe this is even better. Well, not current context. Let's context. No. I think that's the right way to do it. So, okay, so there are two ways to express, there are two rules to lifting an action. The first rule is, three rules. There are three parts to the best practice of lifting actions. The first part is, don't type the specific action you're going to deal with. Type what you need from that action. If you're consuming the current context, type that with any context, like any of the context of the feature, and optionally limit it to specific requirements around that context. So for example, if I needed just the image, I would do this, right? In this case, I want to limit it to base context. And then the third part to that best practice is it should always explicitly return an Excalidraw context. That will help you with the typing here. And it will just, based on like here, we're like using the current context. So this is like limiting the return type here automatically. But it can be any context, right? Okay, I'm happy with that. Maybe I need to document this before I forget it. Where is reactstates? Wow, we're moving slowly on this live sync, aren't we? Blah, blah, blah. Lifting actions. Read me. Get away from me. Read me. Okay. So this is all wrong, right? This shouldn't be this. This should be description string. You can lift them up and compose them back into your transitions. And we should always have context. Yeah, so this is when you actually have multiple actions. But you might also have specific action handlers. Let's call them action handlers because that's what they are. Yes. There are three rules to, or 3 parts, rules is so strict, to this pattern. 1, do not type the action argument. Only type what you need from an action, not the actions themselves, because that allows you to just insert it wherever it fits, right? If you were to type it explicitly as one action, you would only be able to use it with that one action. It doesn't make any sense. But if you only need like a description, you can use, in terms of typing the action, you can use it wherever there's a description coming in. And then when consuming this should be current context. If you are consuming the current context, type it as the context. How should I, if you're consuming the current content, type it as any context. Type it as any context and optionally restrict it with specific with values, properties and values you want to be available on that context. That's what I mean. I think that needs an example. And then always give any context as the return type. Let's do it. think this will be more clear when you can define a single action handler or multiple action handlers. So this would be TS. We're not doing pick action. We do change description. I love that Prettier actually works in Markdown and on the code examples in the Markdown. That's just amazing. So we have changed description here. Yeah, and this should be handle change description. We're change description. Like that. And we could say yeah, and we could like say that the context should also have a description. Like it doesn't make sense to change the description if the current context doesn't have it. We could say that. Expressing what we want from the action, expressing that we allow any context as long as it has an existing description on it. Allowing us to move into any context or any state. Or let's call it context here. I think that makes more sense. Okay. I think this helps. Okay, so let's add that. Lift actions pattern update. Oh my god, I think we'll continue on to like 10. Sorry that you have to follow me on writing documentation, but that needed to get out of my head. So now we can finally, so we're not just building the application, we're actually like documenting an architecture here. Maybe I should be more explicit about that. But what we can do now is that, okay, we're in edit. We want this to work in dirty. We want it to work in syncing. We want it to work in syncing dirty. And I think, yeah, received updating. Yeah, so this kind of gives us we also want it to work in updating. Or do we? Do we? That's something to think about. Let's think about that. So what it means to do updating is that's when you have moved away from the tab, you're moving back to the tab, it notices that, oh, there's a change on the server. There's a new version on the server that so you're behind, and then it runs an update. Then it moves into updating state. The question is, do we want to run a subscription there? Like it's kind of a silly thing because like it just happens within milliseconds. But there is a scenario, like just when you start updating, there's an update. Like it can happen, like technically. So yes, let's, did I make any changes here? Oh. Oops. Yes, so yes, we do want to allow that. Subscription updates when, and there we have a passing test. Awesome. And this is pretty expressive, like should go to update from prayer when receiving subscription update in all subscription states. All active subscription states. So we define these subscription states as a constant. so that we ensure that if we type anything wrong here, it will yell at us here. We just create the test and run it, and we trigger change. So what we want to test now is that when we actually do trigger with data, we want to make sure that we merge. That's the next test. So let's try that. Now the question is, yeah, we can do that later. First, so this test is going to fail us. It's going to fail completely. Should go to update from pair with merged elements when receiving subscription update. So we don't have to, now we can drop this stuff, we can copy, we can move this out again. We don't have to check every single state for this. We can just do this, and we can say like edit, for example. And now we want to say that we have some elements, which is version 0. Oh, sorry, ID 0, version 0. And we have like one element should be, yeah, and we want them to be in different order. So we have ID 1 is at version 1, ID 0 is at version 0. So this is the actual client. This is like, this is my state now. And I have one that should be ahead of time, and I should have one that is behind. This is interesting. Okay, so we're testing. We should be more explicit about this. Existing elements. So we're saying that we test elements out of order. So let's just add server new elements, and now we're going to change this to 0 and this to 1. We test elements out of order where existing has an update and and new elements has an update. So basically this is just doing it out of order with the ID, and then we have a version change that's ahead on ID 1. So you see that the server is behind on the version of 1, but it should be ahead. Okay, so we can do just version. So you see, this is interesting. So we are out of order on the IDs, and the existing elements is ahead on ID 1 and behind on ID 0. And then new elements coming from the server as a different order of the IDs, and it's ahead on ID 0 and behind on ID 1, right? So what we should end up with here, final elements should be, so the final elements should be IDs, yeah, it should be ID 1 and ID 0. Where both of them are at version 1, right? So everything should be up to date. Final elements, so that's what we're testing. Okay, cool. So now we have existing elements, we are getting new elements, and when we're moving to updating from pair, we're going to say to equal context, Excalidraw context, and that should be the state of updating from pair. Let's just and then data. Let's see. Oh, this is interesting. This is very interesting. We shouldn't actually check the version. Oh, this is interesting. Because we might be on the same. That's the question. How can we assume that if we make different changes, do we end up on different versions? Or is there a scenario where I make one change and you make a different change and both of us are on the same version? That means that it wouldn't actually update. I have no idea how these versions are created in Excalidraw, so it's kind of dangerous to make those assumptions. And what that means is that we rather want to always merge the elements when you get an update from the server. What's a little bit annoying about that is that you will also get an update from the server when you save your own Excalidraw, but we can't really do anything about that. Or I think there's a metadata thing. You can do like, where was that? Yeah, has pending rights. Yeah, I think we can check that to avoid like doing that additional work. It's not that much work, but we can't depend on the version. We don't care about the version. We always want to go through all the elements, and then it will rather return a new set of elements if one of them has changed. And if not, it won't return anything, and it won't do the update either. Like it won't move into updating from pair. So this is kind of annoying. So the version here doesn't really matter. We can't trust it. Or I don't know if we can trust it. That's the problem. Is there maybe some way we can test this? Is there some way we can test this? How are we going to deal with this? How are we going to deal with this? And this is like, if my assumption is wrong here, that the version will always be different. Because the interesting thing is that, no, I think the version will always be different. Yes, I'm pretty sure, because the way you create the version is by looking at the elements. That is what creates the version. So if the elements has different versions, I guess the question is, if we happen to change the same element. So for example, I'm changing the text and you are changing the color of that text. Would that end up into the same version change? But I think that's kind of... But anyways, that's something I do want to test. Like, what's the experience like when we change the same element? Because we're not merging, that's the thing. Okay, this is interesting, because we are not merging elements themselves. Like, if there are two elements that has changed, so for example, I'm on a version, I have changed a version, you have changed a version, I won't merge those changes because we don't know what is within each version. We just know that the element has a new version. So like the latest version will just win. So if I change the text and you change the color, and me changing the text has a higher version number than you changing the color, you won't get both changes. You will just get the text changes. Okay, so I think making that assumption is okay. That will always get like a correct version bump. So we can trust that. So what we want to test here is that, well, first of all, the image needs to be here, new blob, because those will change reference. I don't think it's able to understand that two instances of a blob is the same or equal. Oh, we have the same with last updated. Oh, this is annoying. Yeah, maybe we can rather do this. Let's see. Base context. Or let's say initial context. Okay, this is going to be nice. Initial context. Image is new blob. And then what we're going to do, we're just going to say initial context here. And then, oh my God. Can I do this? No. Oh, sorry. Oh, that's interesting. So you can actually say the whole object is a const, and that will make everything a const, I guess. That's really interesting. I thought it was only for like a specific string, but you can actually do it. Well, I did it with array though. Yeah. Oh, I learned something new with this. Anyways, so what we're going to say is that this is going to equal the initial context, but the state has changed. And the data would be initial context.data where the elements has changed. New elements. And then everything else is the same. We should be able to do that. But it should error. Oh. Includes of undefined. Oh, that's new elements, and this should be final elements. But yeah, includes. Includes what? Cannot read property includes. What the hell does that mean? This seems to be like a... Okay. What the hell is this? Where is this error coming from? Cannot read property includes of undefined. It seems to be like an internal... It's like there's something it doesn't understand about this object, it seems. What the hell? I'm not getting much to go by here. I'm not getting much to go by here. I have a feeling there's some complexity in the thing I'm equaling. For example, the blob or the new date. Maybe I can say null as any. Let's see what happens now. Null as any. Yeah. It's not able to... God damn. Why is it making it so difficult? Does this actually return like true? No. Okay, but I guess this is so stupid. Is it the same for, is it just a blob? Maybe it's just a blob. Yeah, it's just a blob. So if I do this, then it fails. Yeah. Okay. Let's call it fake blob. Const fake blob equals no. And then we say as na or as blob. Well, as na, whatever. Just does not support equal blob. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Okay, so now we're getting something. So it's saying, first of all, it's like the wrong order, because the final existing elements has one. Why is it complaining about this? Oh yeah, sorry, because I'm just returning the new elements, right? So the order is wrong and the versions are also wrong. Oh yeah, sorry, I need to, the version should be 1. That's correct. So it's just this array. So now let's fix that array. Let's create a merging function. The question is, where should we put that function? First of all, where should it actually happen? So we have handle subscription. This is where we say get change data. And now we're saying that new data.version equals all data.version will just return. That's perfectly okay. But now we're just returning the new data, and this is where we actually want to do the merge. So let's create a function that says merge elements, and it takes new elements and old elements, and these elements is an Excalidraw element. And the thing is that things can be out of order. Or we don't know. They might be out of order. So let's do merge elements, new data. Oh yeah, so we want to return the new. Can we get an, oh, this is interesting. Okay. There's also another complexity here. We might be on a version in front of the update we get. So we have to make sure that we actually return the latest version. Or no, that doesn't matter. We don't care about the version, because the version is created when we actually store the Excalidraw. So it's like, it's temporary in the client. It's just what version am I currently working on. It's not like what version am I on exactly now. So we can just do new data and then or undefine. So this would be elements, merge elements, new data elements, old data element. Okay. Let's see. How should we effectively iterate this? Even though it's out of order. Yeah, and this is also a thing. We also have yet another storage Excalidraw. I think it's called isDeleted. Where do we have that? Yeah, isDeleted. That's also something we actually want to merge. Okay, so we should really have 3 elements here so that we can update. Yeah. ID to isDeleted true. Oh, we should. So we get some help. Oops. We need some help to define these. So isDeleted false. IsDeleted false. Let's just do isDeleted false, isDeleted false. This should be like, it can be version 1. Oh, that's also interesting. Like if it's, we don't care about the isDeleted. No, sorry, we don't. God damn it. We don't care about that. And the reason we don't care about that is because if you change that property, it will bump the version. So we only care about the version. Where did we add that thing? Index. So it will actually just bring in the latest state no matter. Okay, so how do we most effectively iterate to arrays and make sure that we deal with all the IDs? Well, I guess the best way to do it would be to, well, that's the question. We can sort them first by ID and then iterate both of them. Or we can iterate one of them and then look for the ID in the other array, but that means that we have to iterate the other array for every element in the first array, which is ineffective. We can iterate one array and do a lookup in the other array and see, do we have the same ID? And then we just do the comparison there. But the problem is that they're out of order, which means that, okay, so if we use the index to look up and it's a different ID, how do we make sure that we'll revisit that element? There's probably some algorithm for this, but I'm not a CI or a CS, computer science student, so I don't know anything about algorithms. I have to think about this and try to come up with my own solution. I'm sure there's a really smart way to do this, but I'm not that smart. So how would I deal with this? And there's a question, like, this is insanely fast. No matter, there aren't that many elements, but at the same time, it's a fun thing to try to solve. The thing is, we do want to return a new set of elements here, no matter. So what we could do is we could create a map, visited elements, something like that. Visited elements, visited elements. And this would use the ID. And it would basically Yeah. So we would iterate one array, and then every time we use the index to look up into the other array. And if they happen to have the same ID, we'll do the merge, or like choose the one that's on the latest version and put it into visited elements. Yeah. And then if they don't have the same ID, we'll put which one will we actually well, is it unvisited elements? Okay, so I think if we do visited elements and then we do new elements for the thing, I really want to just do this object values visited elements, or like evaluated elements. I think that might be a way to do it. What happened here? New elements dot for each element, and then well, let's do a for, like, let's really optimize this thing. Maybe we should even go through it backwards. As I heard, that's faster than going forwards. But yeah, let's not care about that. So x0, new elements. Yeah, so this is the tricky thing. Like we need to, yes, this is interesting. We want to iterate the set of elements that has the most elements. So elements to iterate would be new elements length more than old elements length. If that's the case, it's new elements or it's the old elements. And it doesn't matter. If it's the same size, it doesn't matter. And then we iterate the elements. And then we're going to get that element and we have the index. Oh, but now we don't know which is the other array. For fuck's sake. How should we do this? Because we need to look up into the other array. And my brain is starting to shut down on this. We could also just take the longest length. And then we would kind of look up in one array, and if there wasn't anything there, we would use it to look in the other array. But that doesn't... Like I want to make this code readable and efficient. And that's often difficult to do. Like the easiest way to do this would be to just iterate, like have an evaluated elements. We would iterate first new elements, add all the elements to evaluated elements. And then we would move through the old elements, and we would then, if you had a match on the ID, you would merge them. And if it wasn't there, you would add them, and then we would just return all the elements. Because you can't actually delete an element. It just gets the property is deleted. Maybe I should optimize that, but yeah, that's a different story. Oh, I can't decide. Should I just do that? Like, this is not a point of where we really need to optimize. yeah, it's silly to optimize this. Let's just let's not make it more complicated than it needs to be. So let's go through the new elements or the old elements for each element, and we say we could use like a reducer here, and that would be like the correct thing to do. Should we do that? Yeah, let's do that. So we have old elements. So let's call this final element. So we have old elements. We'll reduce those to an object where we have the current element, and that means that element.id is the element. That would return that. And this is, of course, failing miserably string of Excalidraw element. Okay, so we have that. So this is now an object. And now we're actually going to just reduce over that again. Initial elements and then merged elements. And then we're actually going to do merged elements. Okay, so what we're going to do here, we're going to now reduce. No, wait, this doesn't work. Does it? Yeah, it does work. So we're going to reduce over the new element. And we're going to return the same. Well, now we don't have to type it because now we're going to do element and we're going to pass the initial elements. So what we can do inside this now, we can check if we already have the element ID and that element version, or like, and that element already existing version is less than this version, then we want to replace it. Element ID equals the new element. Let's just return this. Or if else, if no, if we don't have this element there at all, we also want to add it. Okay, so we can say, and we don't have to do this, we can put that in a single thing. So if newer version replace it, if not exists, insert it. So this is kind of, if no, this is kind of the way you shouldn't write comments. Like, it's just explaining what it's doing, but I think it's not expressive enough. Like, this is kind of, why is this parenthesis there? Oh, why do I have a comma there? Or there we go. I don't think the code expresses it well enough, so that's why I'm writing a comment. And what we could do instead is, yeah, so we can say is newer version. I can do this. Whoop. Already exists. So we can do, I don't like negative flags. Already exists. And then we can reuse that. Is existing element. We should rather do this. These are flags. Is existing element . and the version is newer version. Got that. Is new version. So we can say if not is existing element or is new version. That's that's pretty concise. Then we'll do this. Shouldn't this actually have worked now? Did I do something wrong? Oh, this is interesting. Because now I can't guarantee. Okay, it's the test that's wrong. Like in this case, we're taking the initial elements. Yeah, so it's the test. The test is wrong. Why is this complaining? Why are you complaining? What the hell? Type is missing the following properties: read only ID, stroke color, background color. Oh, did I import it from somewhere else? Oh, look at that. Do we have from environment? Well, actually, this is also something that we want to do here. We want to actually re-export. The thing is that we're using some states or some types from an environment effect, but we might want to consume this feature and point to specific types that's being used as part of the context. So what we do in that case is that we'll actually re-export the types that is being used inside this feature. So we're going to Excalidraw data and Excalidraw meta. Can't I do this? Oh yeah, export type, of course. So we are going to re-export those types, and then we have those types available on the where is the thing? There. Excalidraw element should be here now. So that's an important thing, because in this application architecture, when you implement like UI and you need access to types, you should never know about the environment. You shouldn't even import types from the environment, and it's really tricky to know which environment effect has what types. But you are consuming a specific feature in that UI, so and you know that that's where the type is related to, so you should import it there, or from there. Anyways, we are going a lot of back and forward on this. Okay, so the thing is, this test is basically wrong because we are now merging it. Oh, it says version 0 here. What did we actually merge it? So if is new version, why didn't this work? So we are testing, we are in version 0, we moved to version 1. There's something wrong with our logic. What the hell did I do wrong? What the hell did I do wrong? So we are creating a list of the original versions, and ID1 should have... Oh! Existing elements, ID1 actually has version 1. So for some reason, we are overriding it. How can that happen? I don't understand this. How is this possible? What the hell am I doing wrong? So this is right. The version is less, so it's merging a single one. But why does ID1 have version 0 then? Because the initial elements version 1, or sorry, ID1 has version 1. Am I testing the wrong thing? No, final elements. I'm confused. I'm merging. What the fuck? Oh, ID version 1, ID1 version 1. So I am returning. Ooh. Oh, sorry, it's this piece of shit. We actually have to return the change data. That's it. Like we're returning the initial data. There we go. There we go. Good thing we are writing tests and putting so much. What I'm doing here, when we talk about implementing something, the time I'm spending with this and all this mental energy I'm using for a seemingly simple thing like this is what we really want programming to be about. But we can't sell it to project managers. Like they don't typically have an understanding of how much effort it is to do something right, how much mental, because from the perspective of like the functionality, like take this specific example, like we just want to, whenever we get an update from the server, we want to merge the elements and show that, right? I could implement that in 15 to 30 minutes. Yeah, probably 15 minutes. I could have something running. And it would seemingly work, right? We could test it. I would change something. I would change something over there. You would see it merge. Or I can spend 2 hours. I can really think hard about how it's going to work. I'm very spending a lot of time on naming, on typing, ensuring that we have the right states, writing the tests, and all that stuff. That's how we really want to do it. So I would suggest, like, if you work in an environment like at Code Sandbox, we write the code the way we want to write it. We can spend as much time we want to do the right thing. It's not someone breathing down our necks. But if you ever get like the question like, can you estimate this? Just ask a question back. Do you want it to be like fast and bad, or slow and good? Or in other words, do you want me to spend 15 minutes on this or 2 hours on this? Because you can actually, it doesn't matter what implementation it is. You can spend little time on it, or you can spend a lot of time on it. And the more time you spend on it, the higher the quality is. Project managers typically, there isn't any range of quality on implementation. It's only does the thing work or does it not work? And there's a certain amount of time to do that, to make it work, and it doesn't work that way at all. Anyways, I'm rambling. Okay, we spent quite a bit of time today on this. Let's remove that last log. It would be fun to see if this actually works. There we are. Like, can we test it? Have we implemented everything? So we do have do we have everything? No, we still have a bit of implementation to do. Well, I guess updating from pair, render Excalidraw. We just want to render Excalidraw. Yeah, and this is interesting. Like, this is also where I did it the wrong way. We should say Excalidraw context and base context. I think. Was that right? What's this yelling about? Oh, it's because we're missing the updating from pair. Oh no, we have loading error. Okay, sorry. This was the right usage of, but we have to add updating from pair. And then if we are updating from pair, I guess do we want the active one? Yeah, let's move back to the active one. And this is interesting. We introduce a new state now, and suddenly now it's yelling at me in the UI. How do you want to deal with the state of like the button when you have this new state? What should the button look like when you're receiving something from the server? And in this case, we do want that button to just be active. So if we were syncing, we're actually not syncing anymore. So we're going to make it active, because we kind of then move back into a dirty state, which will trigger the syncing later. And again, should it be read only when we are updating from pair? No, it should not be read only. Nope, nope, nope. What are you complaining about? Oh yeah, we're not passing the state. Cool. So that yelled at us. That's good. So one thing we're not doing now, when we are, so the thing is, we need to do this merging a different place as well. We have to do it when we actually update the database. So now we can test this now, and then we can do the other implementation. Maybe I'll just do that this weekend. But we have to make sure that if I'm making changes, currently we're just pushing it into Firebase. But that might override something. So we need to, instead of just pushing it into Firebase, we need to run a transaction in Firebase. And well, actually we haven't implemented the actual list subscription yet, so we can't actually test it. And I have to stop now because I have to do other stuff. Okay, so what's missing here? We actually have to implement the Firebase. That's funny. Like, we spent all this time, we haven't even implemented anything in Firebase. Anyways, we need to implement the actual browser Firebase environment effect for subscribing to changes. And then we also need to make sure that when we do actually sync our changes, we need to run a transaction instead. And a transaction in Firebase is basically, it locks the field or the document, and then it gives you that document, and then you can look at its existing value. So we'll basically just do the same there. We'll merge our data into what's in Firebase, and then we'll yeah, exactly. We'll merge that into Firebase, and then, oh, that's interesting. How do we ensure? Or should we go for like an eventual consistency thing? Maybe this is not necessary. Let's try without it, because if I'm pushing something into Firebase and like the versions are all wrong there, like I'm actually pushing something into Firebase which is not the absolute latest version. Like, I have some local changes. How would that work? Yeah, I think that will just work. So what happens here, I should probably draw it up, but I don't have time. It's like, I'm working on my machine and there's this other machine. I'm making changes there, and I'm pushing it to Firebase. And then those changes goes into, like, the other person gets the snapshots, it updates its local state so that that becomes the source of truth now. And then it becomes dirty, and it pushes that back into Firebase, which then goes down into my client again. Okay, so let's imagine there's no changes on the other computer. I'm making some changes on my computer. That's pushed to Firebase. The other computer is updated with the snapshot. Yes, and since, yes, this is interesting. And when it has been updated, it will try to sync it back up to Firebase again. But it does a version check first. Is the version here the same as it already is in Firebase? Well, then I won't do the sync. So it kind of stops there. But if we take the same scenario again, I'm making some changes on my machine. They're moved to the other machine. It's merged there. It tries to sync it back. It sees that, oh, there are different versions there. It syncs it back up. It goes back to my machine. I haven't made any new changes. So I get that in, I merge it. I try to sync it back up again, but now I see I have the same version, so it won't sync it back. So it will keep doing this dance of updating, merging, until like everybody's on the same version, which is basically eventual consistency. I could do like this transaction, so I kind of keep the database also like always up to date, but I don't think it's worth it. I'm just going to double check that we actually do. Yeah, so it's yelling because we haven't implemented the subscription yet. But when I try to save Excalidraw, it goes in and it sets Oh, it just sets the elements. Don't I do a version check somewhere? I think, okay, I have to finish this thought, because here we, yeah. Okay, so we have to take the version into account. It works the same way, but the reason it won't update with the server is because this merging results in the same version that we're actually getting from the server, right? That's what causes it to not update. It's not like I'm checking the version on the server when I'm syncing. I'm checking that the current version I have, does that match the current elements? So in this case, I'm getting an update from someone else. I'm merging that in with my own, and I'm also getting the version that's coming from the server. And then when I try to push this back up, I will do a new version check on these elements that has been merged, and I will see, does it match my existing version? And if it does, I won't sync it back up. But if it doesn't match, I'll need to sync it back up. Now the big question is, how is this version calculated? And I guess it doesn't matter like the order of the elements, the ID of the elements, or anything like that. It's just, maybe we can look at that. I need to check that. Where do we do this check? I think we do it here in the reducer. Yeah, has changed Excalidraw. No, sorry. How do I get the version? Where do I have that? I think it's actually in the effects. I can't remember. Where the fudge do I... Oh, sorry. It's coming from... I believe it's coming from the change, isn't it? So when I'm getting a change from the Excalidraw canvas, it gives me the version. Ooh. I can't remember. Where do I create the version? On change, on change. Get scene version. Here it is. Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe I shouldn't have it here. Maybe this should be way inside. Oh yeah, it's because I don't want to calculate the scene version until I actually intend to notify that it's changed. That's the thing. Anyways, let's look at get scene version. Okay. I happen to have the source code here because I needed it for one of the effects. Create Excalidraw image. Yeah, exactly. It just takes all the versions. Yeah, exactly. So that's good. It doesn't care about the ID or anything. It just takes all the versions of all the elements and accumulates it. So that should work. That should work. This should probably be documented somehow. How would we document this? I would think we should write this down. Maybe we should write it here with the subscription effect. Like, I guess that's where you would go if you wonder how it works. When A makes changes, those changes are received at B. B will merge these, will merge the elements by ID and latest version. Yeah. And go dirty. B will merge the elements by ID and latest version, given that the Excalidraw version, element ID and latest element version, given that the Excalidraw main version has changed. Okay, given that B Excalidraw version is behind, B will merge the elements by element ID and latest element version, and go dirty to sync changes. To sync changes back up. Okay, so this is interesting. So if yeah, exactly. A will now be notified again due to an okay, and go dirty and go dirty. Does it go dirty? Should we actually check the well, god damn it, I have to go through this, because the question is, how do I prevent, if I go dirty, I dispatch a sync. When it's syncing, it just does the sync. It doesn't check anything here. So where do we actually check if we should go dirty? I think we should actually check that based on version. Oh, my brain is like overloading with putting things together. Okay, let's get back to the description. So when A make changes, those changes are received at B. Given that B Excalidraw version is behind, B will merge the elements by element ID and latest element version. Well, in this case, B will merge the elements by element ID and latest element version and go dirty. The thing is that in this case, the version, like what we do here, it will merge the new version. Well, we'll merge the elements by element. Do we need to calculate the new version, scene version here? Oh, wait, not go dirty and go updating from pair. Yeah, sorry. So when A make changes, those changes are received at B. B will merge the elements by element ID. Will merge the new data. We'll set the new data by merging the elements by element ID and latest, and go updating from pair. Excalidraw will update the scene. Yeah, exactly. Excalidraw will update the scene, which creates a change. Update the scene, which creates a change where the new version is evaluated. If the versions now change because of, yes, exactly. So this is the thing. Like, we're getting changes from A. I haven't made any changes. I'm just getting changes from A. I now have a new version. I have some merged elements. I have some new elements. Those are passed now into Excalidraw. Excalidraw will make a change, and that change is now moved into the change handler, which will calculate the new version of the Excalidraw and notify our reducer, as we saw here. Effects, no, sorry, in the Excalidraw. You see here, it calculates, so it creates an Excalidraw change with the new version. And then in our reducer, we have Excalidraw change. And here we actually check, have we changed? We should put these also into, oh, interesting. We should put these into utils as well. And has changed Excalidraw just checks the version and the background color. Which means that if we go through this once more, god damn, this was super complex. So if we go through this again, I'm making some changes on A, it's received at B, B hasn't made any changes, it just sets that new data coming from A so there's a new version there now. That's not very explicit here, is it? Makes changes. Okay, A is at version, has made changes. A is at version 0, B is at version 0. Yeah, maybe this is a better way to explain it. A goes to version 1, B receives data from A. B is now at version 1 with merged elements of maybe I should explain the whole. Anyways, B is now at version 1 with merged elements of A and B. Excalidraw updates scene with merged elements. Change event calculates the new version. If version has changed, meaning B also had changes, if version has changed, meaning a new sync occurs. If no version changed, we are in sync. Okay, this is it. That was a better way to write it. So in this case, if version has changed, meaning B also changed, a new sync occurs, where A now does the same version evaluation and possibly syncs back again as there were new changes in the meantime. So that's what I mean about the dance. If no version changed, we are in sync. Okay, that was good to get out of the way. So what we need to do on Monday, or maybe I'll do it just in the weekend, is that we're going to implement the actual subscription environment effect on storage. As you saw, we don't have it, and yes, we just need to implement that, and then we should be able to test it. Yes, exactly. Okay, cool. If you follow me along on this 2-hour ride, I hope it was interesting. But yeah, I will do this stream even if no one was watching. So it's just super nice for me to. It's like training. I'm training my brain by talking about what I'm thinking and reasoning, and it forces me to think more about what I'm doing. Anyways, have a good day, and we'll talk later.